Yeah, my name is Dmitry Glukhovsky. I'm the book author who wrote Metro series, the Metro series, and I also co-authored the Metro Exodus video game. So this time it has been more of a collaboration with the guys taking bigger responsibility over the level design. My responsibility was to make sure that this gaming experience has a theme, has a meaning, has makes sense. Basically, it's a story about something. So what the story is about. So I'm telling you what the story is about. Also, whatever is this core, the emotional core of that story, the relationships between Miller, Artyom, Anna, and the rest of the Spartans who go with them. This band of brothers in arms who follow them on this trip, on this journey, on the train. That's my creation. The guys did the level design and the communities that populate different stations. And then, of course, it was back and forth when they were sending me the dialogue. I was polishing some of the dialogue. I was sending their ideas. They would give me feedback on that. So I would say that this is like a 50-50 creation. You know, after a certain point, starting from the second game, we decided that we do not have to make the games follow precisely the plot lines of the books. The second book in the franchise, Metro 2034, was very much introspective, not a lot of action plot, and for that reason did not make a good base for a video game. So we decided, screw it, we'll go elsewhere. Why wouldn't we create a separate story that would be in the same year, but in parallel to the story of Metro 2034? And so we created, me and the 4A team, we created a separate story which was told in parallel and concerned Artyom, because 34 was about someone else. So then after a while they said, hey, we want to continue this, we want to do a third game. And we thought it can be a story about going to the surface. Like your character, Artyom, he always dreamt about leaving Moscow and going elsewhere. What if he goes elsewhere? On a train. And I fucking love this idea. Why wouldn't he go? They say yeah, but what is the story going to be about? We don't know. I said, okay, I'm going to think about it and I'm going to offer you a story. At the same time, I was writing Metro 2035, so I could write one single integrated story that would start with the book, Metro 2035, and then when the book ends, the story would be picked up by the next game. So somehow, before the transmedia became all the rage, we kind of invented it intuitively. Back in 2009 or before that. So 10 years ago, we already started to introduce the transmedia elements. And so the plots of the books and the games, they complete each other. In order to know the general saga of Metro, you have to both play and read. And they kind of pieces of patchwork that you piece up together to see the big picture. So bullets were stocked in abundance because Russians, just like Koreans, have always, North Koreans, have always prepared, the Soviets have always prepared themselves for the last standoff, the World War III. So the underground of Moscow is not just the subway, it's not just the metro, it's the bunkers and bunkers and bunkers and bunkers. And it's secret tunnels, and it's stocks of food and medication and ammo and whatnot. So I just used the factor that I have around me, and it was all the natural thing to just go ahead and use it. And apparently, since I was just born Russian, I was born actually Soviet, then I became Russian at the age of 12. It was different enough. And although at first the game was too exotic for the Western gamer, and felt a little bit too weird with unpronounceable station names and too bleak probably, because with the Western apocalypse is so merry. You just smash everybody with a club, you know, hey, chainsaw, you know, kill the fucking zombies, you know. And Russian post-apocalypse has this, you know, gloomy, dark feeling, not really hoping to survive it, regretting the old good days gone forever. Very different touch, and it was not artificial, you know, it was all very natural. And the outcoming story and the outcoming game just was different because we were different. And we didn't want to be like everybody. You know, like, this is the day, these are the days when being different is kind of a secret power. So we are taking that out of the underground. Do we ensure that this is like metro, subway is part of the brand, you know, like, and a part of the concept. So if we go outside, is it still metro? I think that the big part of the charm of the series is not just the stations and the trains and the rails and the tunnels, but the Soviet punk style. You know, like, you have the steampunk, you have cyberpunk, and this is the Soviet punk. There's this fetishism for the Soviet brutalist architecture, the pseudo-classical monuments glorifying fallen communist heroes, you know, that do not make much sense for a Western audience, and as little sense for the new generation of Russian gamers. That is some kind of a weird, quite hermetic, but very recognizable world that is very interesting to explore. It's kind of a heritage that nobody cares about, that goes into decay, and this decaying urban environment and this fetishism for the Soviet heritage, all of that is kind of still there. And so are the rails and the trains. And so is the longing for the brighter yesterday and the fear of a darker future. We could not, I don't think that it would be a good idea to stay inside the metro for the third game in a row. You know, you have to do new things, you have to offer new opportunities, it has to be a step forward. So we decided to make this a step forward, and also to expand the entire thing, offering something totally new, but in style, in touch, in the feeling, still remaining very faithful to the original material. So in the first two games, they were actually corridor shooters. This is to say, you were going through a corridor and you were shooting. And this was not just a physical corridor, it was a metaphysical corridor, so you didn't have much choice. Sometimes there was an outlet like going left or right from that corridor, but there was another corridor. So in this game, the concept was different. You go from one station to another, you stop, and then you got a big level that you're exploring. Then you board in the train again, you go elsewhere, and another one. So within these levels, you have quite a lot of freedom. You got the freedom to act, you got things to explore, you got weapons to craft. How you make sure that the story is still coherent. So my stake was, we're making this a very personal, dramatic thing. Unlike in the previous two games where you were saving humanity and the world, like big things that are not really personal, and so you're ready to relate, but to a certain extent. In this case, the story is super, super dramatic and super, super personal, and it revolves around Artyom, the protagonist, his wife Anna, that we know from the novel, game Metro Last Light, and from the novel Metro 2035. If you really want to get in depth of that story, there's still 1 month to go and read it before the big game releases. But I believe that this is going to be like strong enough to grasp your attention and give you purpose of what you're doing while you're exploring those big levels. So it keeps like very personal. For me, you know, like Metro has different outlets. Metro is not just this big video game, it's also a social game on social networks. We kind of like player versus player, player versus like PC, like primitive thing, but you know, like 10 million people playing in Russia. So, or the board games, or fire tag, or cosplaying things, you know, like a lot of things happening both in Russia and in Europe. But this is the most important project for me, of course. You know, like I'm paying as much importance to the storytelling in the Metro games as I'm paying importance to the books. And I totally do understand that these games must be an integral part of the overall story of the saga, and that they're bringing new readers to the books, and that some of people will never read the books but will judge the books by the games. So I totally need to make sure that the games are telling the story that I'm fine with, you know, yeah. And that I'm one of the authors of. Of course, the better the detail, the more realistic the world is, and the less distance you keep from it. What's most important is, of course, the face animation, and the behavior of the characters, because when you want them to play real deep, dramatic, or tragic stories, and they like this, you know, it kind of feels shallow, and you can't really relate to that story. If they're supposed to pronounce some kind of you know, decisive monologue, or they have a fight over something, and they do this, you know, immediately you have the psychological distance from it, and you cannot really relate to that story. So that's the important thing, and we're getting there. So the facial animations are way better than they was, and than they were. Mocap is better, everything is better. So I'm pretty happy about that. Now, at the same time, I must say, it's like with 3D movies, like with stereo. You go to a 3D movie, how long will it be till you stop noticing that everything is like three-dimensional? Maybe like 5 minutes. And then it's either the story clicks with you or it doesn't. You know, you go see Transformers, you're gonna throw up, you know, in 10 minutes, no matter whether you wear 3D goggles or not, because the story is so stupid, because the story is based on the toy cars. And it says like, the story is based on Hasbro toy cars. Like, warning you, we have like that much of a story, you know? And go and watch Breaking Bad, where there is no fucking 3D, and there are 3 sets, 2 flats, and it's cool, and the fucking desert, and this is it. And the cast is like 5 people. Yeah. And you're like watching, you cannot stop watching because it's so thrilling and compelling and breathtaking. This is it. Story first.